So this video is a real quick demonstration on how to run a regression and perhaps even a multiple regression. This is the same Fairmont Royal York data that you guys saw in the previous lecture with our drivers, our possible drivers from columns B through G, and our various costs going from columns H through Q. You'll notice that all the numbers are fairly small, and Excel has a couple of columns where it just shows angry pound signs. The angry pound signs just mean that Excel can't show all the digits and is very upset. So the way you fix that is go to the in-between of the two columns, and you'll notice that your fat white cursor turns into a thin black cursor with double arrows. Just double click when it turns into double arrows, and Excel will automatically resize the column. You can also just click on this upper left-hand corner area, select all the cells, and just do the same thing, and it will adjust. Excel will adjust all the columns to fit in order to show all the numbers inside the cells. So as I zoom in, I notice that I have all sorts of different fonts going on, and that just kind of bothers me as a person. So I'm going to change it all to Times New Roman size 10. I'm going to select this row, Control B to bold that entire row to give it a line, so I know that that's a heading. What else kind of bothers me? The view and the grid lines within Excel. I just don't like grid lines. That's just me. Another thing that's very very handy for making things look kind of nice is I'm going to put total revenue on two separate lines. So within the formula line, I hold down the Alt key and enter, and that just tells Excel that I want a hard space in between, because otherwise if I just press enter, it's going to move on to the next cell. So it's Alt enter to put a hard space within the formula line. Okay, so there we go. I'm just going to run a real quick regression on how, and I'm going to zoom in, on how total revenue, it needs to be right justified. Okay. How total revenue, on how room costs are driven by, let's see, occupied rooms. Okay, so these will be my drivers of this cost here. Okay, so this will be the Y variable, this will be the X variable, or I can say this is the dependent variable, this is the independent variable, meaning how are rooms cost dependent upon the number of occupied rooms that we have. Okay, so what I need to do is go to data analysis, and within data analysis, regression. Click OK, and it's asking me for my Y input range. Y input range is the dependent variable, so that's my dependent variable. Okay, I'm just going to click and select the entire column, or you can start from the header, Shift Control and arrow downward, and it'll select to the end of the adjacent cells. So I'll do that, and then the Y input range, which is the independent variable, which for us will be the occupied rooms. Shift Control down arrow key to select that entire column. I have selected labels in here, so there are labels on the top row. And I want things on a new worksheet fly. I'm going to call this rooms. Okay, and you don't need to worry about these other options here. We're not going to use them. Okay, I click OK, and you'll notice that Excel created a new tab for me called Rooms, right? And you'll notice that Excel here didn't adjust all the columns. So again, I'm going to select everything, and I'm going to double click to increase the columns. I'm going to get rid of these grid lines because they bother me. One thing to notice here, that Excel for some reason duplicates the upper and lower 95% confidence interval bounds. So I'm just going to delete these two. You don't really have to. Okay, so this is how you read the output. Realize that here we had our dependent variable was rooms cost, rooms department cost, right? And the independent variable was the occupied rooms. Okay, so we want to know how occupied rooms changed rooms department costs. There are a couple of things that I want you guys to notice here. The R squared and the adjusted R square is the first one, and I'm going to put these almost into percentages, okay? The way you would read either one of these numbers is, and let's use the adjusted R squared here, that this model, meaning this model here, the regression that we have run, this model explains 76.3% of the variation that we saw within rooms department costs. So here, if we go back to rooms department costs, you'll notice that rooms department cost, it's never the same, right? It changes. There's variation from one month to the next, okay? Well, 76.3% of that variation that we saw can be explained by this model. And we're going to explain how to interpret this model, okay? Just to say that, so really, literally, all you have to say is this model explains 76.3% of the variation we see in rooms department costs. Okay, now you're asking yourself, what is this model that you're talking about, Sybil? Yeah, what is this model? So I'm going to put these terms in terms of dollars here, and then, okay, so there's an intercept, and then there's occupied rooms. Okay, so occupied rooms, again, that's our independent variable. What this is saying is our rooms department cost equals that 584,596 plus 30.08 times number of occupied rooms. Okay? So this is your independent variable, and this is the y-intercept to the independent variable. So hopefully you remember from geometry, the y-intercept is where x equals 0, right? So if this number of occupied rooms was 0, then this rooms department cost would still be 584. This should sound familiar because this implies that this 596 is your fixed cost. Right? So the fixed cost amount, because no matter how many occupied rooms you have, you still incur this level of cost. And then for each occupied room that you have, you incur an additional $30.08. So that's kind of the variable cost of the room. So again, your total department rooms cost, right, is going to depend on your fixed cost amount and your variable cost amount here. Okay, oops, the standard error part should not be. Okay, oops, there you go. Okay, so for T-statistic, this is not a statistics class, but I have posted up a link to the Khan Academy to review T-statistics if you're interested. For the purposes of this class, all you really need to know is just as long as the T-statistic is greater than 2 or less than -2, then these coefficients are statistically significant and you can believe them. They can be used, okay? These upper and lower bounds are the 95% confidence intervals. So I'm just going to go ahead and put them in terms of dollars. Okay, meaning that with 95% confidence, you believe that this fixed cost amount is between $410,000 and $759,000. Okay, so 95% of the time, you know that the fixed rooms department cost is going to be between this upper and lower bound. Same thing here. With 95% confidence, 95% of the time, you're going to find that the variable cost per room is going to be between $24 and that $35.82. Okay, and that's how you read the regression output from Excel.